Alright. So how is I think, therefore I am retarded? What was the first debunk?
All right, so Descartes uses methodological skepticism, which leads to the cogito as a first principle. It becomes questionable. The
This,
reason why is because
okay,
we
yeah.
saw this reaction in multiple 20th century tradition, including common sense realism, pragmatism, and logical positivism. It seems that the sort of epistemic certainty required by starting with doubting everything doesn't give us enough to base our common sense intuitions, pragmatic decisions, um, or even our empirical methods. It can be argued that since science never really took off until we abandoned such rigid, indubitable restrictions or epistemic justification.
Can you give like an actual argument? Because I didn't really understand that. Like, I will just say this: the I think, therefore I am argument. Define consciousness and sentience as. Like, what
The
is your
debunk that
understanding?
I saw was that the I inside of I think, therefore I am extremely ambiguous, and you can even argue that the I that you're arguing for doesn't even, it's an illusion.
Yeah. Okay, sure. But how do you define consciousness and sentience?
What do you mean? What do you mean by consciousness?
Well, I'm asking the word consciousness. What do you define that as? Like, what is your understanding of that term?
Let's just get a Google definition. I'm not getting word.
Well,
I'm
I
not
have
trying
my
to.
own definition. That's why I asked you yours.
What's yours?
My definition of consciousness is being aware of your reality and your surroundings and your existence. So, like, I am aware. I'm in my room right now. I'm able to consciously perceive that I'm talking to somebody. Right? I am conscious. So my dog is conscious. My dog is aware that it's moving around and other shit, and it's aware of its surroundings, can dodge things, can catch things, right? Is
Yeah, I can say that
perceptively
you're aware.
okay, sure.
By the way, I'm okay. Okay, I'm not saying that you don't exist. I'm just saying that the I think, therefore I am can.
Yeah, I'm gonna lead into that. So what do you think sentience is?
What I think sentience is, I would
Mm-hmm.
say that sentience and conscience sort of have like a hand relationship.
Yeah, I agree. I think sentience is defined as having the knowledge or awareness of your own consciousness, right? So I know I'm aware. I'm aware I'm aware, right?
Hmm.
And so now, do you know what mental states are?
Mental states, yeah, of course.
Okay. So I think your consciousness is wherever mental states originate from. So if I am able to ask a question, that should be described as a mental state. If I'm able to phrase an argument, that should be described as a mental state. So if I say I think, therefore I am, right? That's a thought. And so that's a mental state. That means that it requires some origin, which requires a consciousness. So that I will be in reference to my consciousness. So I know I exist
Okay,
because I think, therefore I am.
okay, wait, hold up. I don't think that I is. I don't think it's a meaningful entity.
Ow.
How? Well, as of recently, it's come under scrutiny.
Mm-hmm.
By someone by the name of Sam Harris. Um, he argues from a neuroscientific view, and he says that your I, and if there is no self to attribute existence, the cogito, as it's called, or like cogito, I don't know how to pronounce it,
In
fails. And by the way, the cogito is just, I think, where I am.
I know what it is. The thing is, even under I'm a neuroscientific reductionist, and I still believe in I think
I
therefore
mean,
I
yeah,
am.
of course.
The I is just in reference
I
to
don't think that like your position. I don't think your position follows. To be
the I is only in reference to the origin of mental states. That's it. So it doesn't matter if it's neuroscientific or if it's idealistic or if it's some type of
I
like
is supposed to be used as a meaningful entity to refer to like a bundle of mental states, not necessarily
the
the
bun.
originating point of.
Not well. Why do you believe that?
Well, that's just how the I is referenced.
How
So
the
if I say,
okay, continue.
wait, hold on. So if I say I as to reference to self, I would like to, like I person, I would like the I that I'm attributing to self to be perceived as something
You went out.
of myself, right?
Yeah, when I talk about I myself, I mean the origin of all my thoughts, me, right? So that's what I define consciousness as, the origin of all my mental states, of all mental states. So if when I say I
And
think, therefore I am, is basically saying if mental states exist, then there is an origin for consciousness. Sorry, then there is consciousness. Mental states do exist, therefore consciousness exists. Like you could put it in a modus ponens.
But then again, you have to think that I is somewhat a subjective term, right?
Mm-hmm.
People have different they perceive themselves differently
I mean,
from I.
everything is a subjective term. If I'm being honest, like
I mean, yeah, everything is a
exactly. So if I'm in reference to the origin of mental states by saying I, then I think that's completely irrelevant. I think that's just a semantical point. If I'm being honest.
That's not necessarily a semantical point. And the reason why it's not a semantical point is because that's exactly where the argument that I'm using comes into play. So
Uh-huh.
if I itself is subjective, and the origin of these states that you're referring to, which is I, is some sort of like a subjective term, or just something that's subjective in general because other people perceive themselves differently whenever talking about the origin of it, then I, being as a meaningful entity, would come under scrutiny. Wouldn't you say so?
Uh, yeah, I understand that. But I still think that like if we all we have to do is just phrase it in a modus ponens type of syllogism, and I think it's completely valid. I guess you can make art attack its circularity, even though it's not really viciously circular. And once you phrase it in a modus ponens, the circularity no longer exists. I don't see any
The
problems with it,
circularity, no, circularity definitely.
even in the modus ponens.
Yeah, even in the modus ponens. So it's buried inside of the I think, right? So
Oh,
you're referencing yourself already existing,
well,
and
no,
then you're stating that you exist.
that's not a part of the modus ponens. The modus ponens is only if there are. So I'm in caps lock. Sorry, hold on. If there are mental states, then
Mental
cause
states already assume existence.
if there are mental states. It's an if statement.
If there are mental, yeah, I could say, if I slaughtered children, then I would be a murderer.
Exactly.
It's just repeating the same thing.
That, what is it called? It's logically symmetrical. All syllogisms are like that. Like I'll give you.
Yeah, well, syllogisms are circular.
I'll give you an example. Yeah, most of the example. 80 centimeters, then I'm 6 foot tall. 180 centimeters and 6 foot are the same thing. It's not
I'm not
circular.
gonna lie. I hate whenever people point out circularity. Like in this case, I don't think that's like the circularity of the argument invalidates it whatsoever. I hate whenever people point out circularity and they're like, "Oh, that invalidates." Nah, that's just it's vacuously valid.
It's conclusion. There. Oh,
Who else in this call right now? Oh,
someone named bro. Uh, Consciousness.
Shinju.
Some random loads here. I'm gonna go debate him. And I recorded this entire
Where?
conversation. Probably Rakuza. All right.
Man, you know I was making shit up the whole time, right?
Oh, probably. Yeah, I'm not surprised. All right. Hold on. I'm about to go VC and Rakuza. Go VC and Rakuza.
On manga,
Yo.
unlike
Bro,
the
no,
entire
it's about
server just went.
What's
bro.
up, Ace? What's up, Ace?
No one cares about
Shinju,
you, man.
Shinju wants to run it
Bro,
with you.
Zeref, bro. I actually think you're trash, bro.
Oh, sure.
Wait, I'm
Hold
gonna
up.
drag you niggas. I'm gonna drag you niggas to debate. One sec, one sec.
All right. Yeah. Be buddy me because I told them I'm gonna debate him.
Yo,
All right. Hold on. Let me. I don't know if Ace is gonna ping this or not, but I'm gonna tell Gray to VC.
I don't know. Wait, so Zeref, do you think you're like actually good?
Yeah.
Like, what? Do you consider yourself good?
Yeah.
I then we'll just debate on the fact if you're good or not.